welcome back to Live at 5. Thanks so much for joining us and for being with you. I'm Raphael Leban, your host. If you're with us on Zoom, a great place to join us. Terrific. If you're enjoying the show on Facebook Live or on our YouTube page, make sure and subscribe or like. And if you could as well consider joining us at Zoom. That's where the backstage action happens. We're Monday through Thursdays at 5 p.m. at 694-348-057, which is the numbers that you need. Get you backstage where all the fun is. Thanks for being with us. And today is the 15th of Sivan. There was actually a very interesting astronomical anomaly today. I don't know how many of you were out looking at the sky at 5 a.m., but there was a total lunar eclipse. Wendy, and look at that. At least someone enjoyed it. I actually missed it by a minute or two. I think I usually am up around then on my way out to my daily Daf Yomi Talmud class. But I didn't get to see it. I think the cloud, it was hidden by the trees or something else. But it was a total lunar eclipse, which is a rare but an interesting occurrence. A total lunar eclipse happens just astronomically when the Earth is in the middle and you have the sun and the moon on perfect opposite sides of the Earth, such that the moon is actually in the Earth's shadow from the sun. So the sun is shining light on the Earth, which for the point of this demonstration will be my head. The Earth, the sun is on this side, and the moon is on the other side. The Earth creates a shadow in the light of the sun, and the moon passes completely through that shadow. Very interesting thing. It always will happen and during the full moon, because a full moon anyway is when the Earth is directly between the moon and the sun. And of course, it would have to happen at night. And sometimes, it occurs in a place and a time that you're able to see it. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Interestingly, too, about it, the Talmud records that there are two different types of eclipses, and they are symbolic of or ominous of different types of events. There's a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. Now, a lunar eclipse, as we just described it, is where the Earth creates a shadow and the moon moves through the Earth's shadow. But when you're talking about a solar eclipse, you actually have that the moon gets between the Earth and the sun, and then the sun is on the other side of the moon, and we can't see it. So that's a solar eclipse. And the Talmud says that a solar eclipse is considered to be a relatively bad sign for humanity in general, but a lunar eclipse is specifically a bad sign for the Jewish people. God forbid. The idea being that it's almost like the moon has been eclipsed or struck or hidden away, and the moon is the solar body that generally represents us in the sky. If there's something in the sky that we say symbolizes the Jewish people, so it's the moon, and therefore the lunar eclipse is just considered to be, generally speaking, not a positive sign. So there's certainly enough painful things happening in the world that this could be in reference to. I was made aware today of a tragic incident that happened this weekend in California, I think in Santa Clara. And we just send our condolences to all those who for the loss of life, and we pray that this seeming unending string of bad news and difficult things should speedily come to an end, and with a time of great joy and peace for all of us. All right. I also want to wish our blessings, or continued blessings of healing, a refuah shlema for Binyamin ben Chayrus. Should have a refuah shlema, Mesach Shachalei Yisrael. He and everyone who needs should be well and healthy. I want to also send a mazel tov to the Greenstein family here of Denver, Colorado, on Aaron Greenstein's upcoming wedding tomorrow night. It's on the East Coast. But we wish them a big mazel tov. And also want to make just a couple of announcements as well. The first of which was an exciting event that we for the first time announced publicly yesterday. We're just beginning to roll out the exciting news of an upcoming summer concert event that will be held, God willing, here at the Levitt Pavilion, beautiful outdoor concert venue here in Denver on Wednesday evening, June 16th, with Jewish singing sensation Mordechai Shapiro in his first time ever appearance in Denver. Should be very exciting. Happy birthday to Andrea on that same date, and we hope you'll be celebrating with us. Meanwhile, that's something to look forward to, and we'll give you more information about how to get special Live at 5 discount tickets. If you're a regular on Live at 5, then we want to make sure that you get a discount ticket to get to the concert, which should be a lot of fun. Also want to let everyone know, if you haven't already signed up for the beginning of our Shmorg program, it begins tonight, both in person, which we're delighted to be able to do after a long hiatus, but there will be a Zoom option as well. If you haven't already signed up, you can do so on the website, and be in touch with me if you don't immediately get the Zoom link, so we can take care of that. Furthermore, I wanted to just lastly, before we sort of dig into the meat and potatoes of our show today, share another interesting historical tidbit that I noticed in this week's calendar. Happens to be that today, many years ago, in the year 1099, there was that was a period of time in European history known as the Crusades. Unfortunately, frequently the Crusades, which as I understand it was a Christian European religious fervor set to liberate the Holy Land from the hands of the Muslims, who then controlled it. Unfortunately, very frequently those events had many Jewish victims. However, they used to sweep through on their way to Israel, and European communities were very frequently tortured and killed. Unfortunately, in this day of 1099, they arrived in Jerusalem and they slaughtered the entire Jewish residents of Jerusalem at the time. 1099, a total massacre. And the Crusaders' control from that moment onwards of Jerusalem lasted for about a little less than a century, till the year 1178. So on the one hand, it's interesting to recognize these certain things that happened historically, and we know Crusaders, not a very admirable time in our history, in human history. I often think it's very strange that you'll sometimes see the Crusader as a high school or a college mascot. That makes me feel a little odd when I say there's actually a high school here in Denver where their mascot is the Crusaders. And when I drove by that not long ago, it made me scratch my head. I'm not exactly sure that's the symbol of of the school that we'd like to see. But it does perhaps put into perspective a little bit of what's going on here. Here we are, thinking about a time of great anti-Semitism. It certainly isn't a greater time of anti-Semitism than that was. And with that, I want to make sure that we recognize that as much as there is an alarming rate of increased incidents of anti-Semitic statements, acts of violence, of attacks throughout the world, that's unfortunately on the rise. This is not a new reality. It's only shocking to us to the degree that we think that we were somehow in a post-anti-Semitic world. We sometimes take our own prayer, never again, a little too seriously, as if we think we've gotten to a place where anti-Semitism is no more. We all wish that were the case. It's certainly not the case. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't strive to address it in ways. And tonight's Shmorg class, actually, we're going to talk about what that might look like. But we should also put it into context. That we've been through happier moments and eras and centuries and epochs and destinations in our long dark exile and the diaspora all over the world. We've been in better places and we've been in worse places. We've had some years where things were good and some countries where they were better to us for a while. And usually that comes to an end. and the Jewish people get expelled from this country or that country, right? Usually one of my favorite things to share with you as a today in Jewish history is which country we got kicked out of today in Jewish history. That is unfortunately the frequent reality. We hope that America is different. God forbid it should join the ranks of every other country that we've inhabited for the last 2,000 years in the diaspora. But if it doesn't manage to be the first exception, we certainly wouldn't be surprised. So my point is hopefully not to be terribly pessimistic, but to be just cognizant of where we are in Jewish history. Where if we really do think that we've somehow put anti-Semitism to bed, or that the world is a different world, I think we're mistaken. And it's better perhaps to at least to check in with the context of Jewish history and to understand why and what's our perspective on these kinds of things. Again, that will be our topic for tonight's short class. For those of you who are able to attend and to participate, and there's still time to register. The main topic for today's show, besides this beautiful picture, I hope you love the photograph of the flowers I took this week at the Denver Botanical Gardens. Very beautiful little bluebells, I think is the name of that flower. A whole field of them. A very pretty shot, and with just a little bit of post photographic editing, just to bump up the color. But this really is what it looks like. And today, what I wanted to continue our discussion of the Parsha, Behalo Sicha, the sort of the Jewish moment of the week. Where are we? Where's the Jewish people this week? Well, we're in Parsha's Behalo Sicha. This is our Parsha. This is our place. And this is sort of where the bookmark in the book, in the good book is for the Jewish people. So I want to talk about it a little bit more today. And there are really a number of fascinating incidents, and it's actually a bit of a turning point. One of the interesting mitzvahs or commandments that's in the Parsha is the commandment to create and construct trumpets. Trumpets. Okay, you've heard of a shofar, right? Everybody knows what the most popular Jewish wind instrument, the shofar, which we usually think about in relation to Rosh Hashanah. But interestingly, there are also some more wind instruments mentioned in the Torah, and these are these beautiful silver trumpets. And the silver trumpets are a commandment that God tells Moses to make when now that the tabernacle is all finished, and we know what we learned in the book of Leviticus what we're supposed to do with it, and the Jewish people have been counted and prepared, and we're ready to journey forth. And now we need something to communicate. We need a tool to rally the Jewish people together. And so the Torah says, Moshe, make these trumpets, make these silver trumpets. Interestingly, there is there's a Mishnah, which is a part of the oral Torah that describes some of the details of blowing the trumpets. And in the temple, sometimes they would actually blow shofars and trumpets together at the same time. And sometimes if the main sound that was to be heard was the shofar, they would all start out together, and then the trumpets would stop and the shofar sound would keep going. And if alternatively the main sound to be heard was the trumpet sound, they would all start out together, the shofar sound would stop and the trumpets would keep going. And you could hear them together. So last year, my youngest son, Yaakov, who was studying to play the trumpet, so he had a trumpet in the house, and I had a shofar lying around the house. So we tried it. So I was blowing the shofar together, and he was blowing the trumpet, and we really got to sound what it was like. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but I'm sure it was pretty close. And it's really it's an interesting mix of tunes. There's a silver trumpet has a certain sound to it, and certainly a shofar, and they resonate so beautifully together. So this set of trumpets that would be used to communicate with the people, the Torah talks about how they would blow the shofar, the trumpets. How they would blow it, and depending on what kind of notes were blown, then the Jewish people would know what to do. Either they should prepare to embark because they were traveling through the desert, and they would stop and go and stop and go. Either they would blow a certain sound, and they would pitch camp, blow a certain sound, and it was time to break camp. And this was the way of gathering the people, either calling them for a meeting, and Moshe was going to teach them about a certain Torah concept or a mitzvah, or a value or philosophy of the Torah. So he would have someone blow. I don't think he would do it, but he would have someone blow it, and the Jewish people would come. Now, the interesting thing about these trumpets is that, as opposed to all of the other interesting vessels, implements, tools that were part of the tabernacle, the Torah seems to say, Moshe, you've got to make them. It actually refers in the making to Moshe. And our sages understand that Moshe is going to be responsible for these. And these, as opposed to everything else, when someone replaces Moshe and when there's a new generation, a new leader, they'll make a new set of trumpets. It's very interesting. The trumpets were not like an eternal thing. Like, think of the menorah, right? The menorah, we had one menorah that was made in the desert, and it was there in the tabernacle, and it lasted for centuries and centuries and centuries. And as opposed to the trumpets were a generational thing, and every generation would have its own set of trumpets. So I heard a very beautiful idea that was shared with a group of my outreach rabbinic colleagues by Rabbi Usher Weiss, who's I believe an American-born, if I'm not mistaken, an American-born leading rabbi and rabbinical voice, and lives in Israel. And he was talking about the reason that the trumpets are like the one thing from all the stuff in the tabernacle that needed to be made anew in every generation, because these are the means of communication. And the means of communication change with every generation. The lessons, the values, the Torah principles don't change, but the means of communicating them do. I mean, let's just think, how many generations of Torah scholars did we have without Live at 5, without Zoom, without podcasts, and without YouTube Torah classes and Torah apps on your phone? These are the means of communication, and the Jewish people are creative, clever, and we take advantage of every option, every appropriate means of communicating with each other and getting the lessons and the values of Torah shared and out there with the people. The lessons themselves are eternal, but the means of communicating those lessons are unique and specific to every generation. And that's what's symbolized by these silver trumpets. Moshe was told to make silver trumpets, but there would be other trumpets. The next generation will have its trumpets, because every generation needs to hear the idea in the way that resonates with it, that speaks to us. What are the means and the tools and the words and the jokes and the narratives and the examples, we need to hear it in our own ears. It's certainly for all of us who have any opportunity to share Torah with others. If it's you're repeating it to kids or to students or to whatever it would be, we have to adapt the means of communication every generation. Now, how long is a generation? In the good old days, a generation was 40 years. But one of my teachers, Reb Moshe Shapiro, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, of blessed memory, he actually posited that the concept of a generation in the rapid fire world that we live in today is not a 40-year period. He said it's a 2-year period. And he said this already 20 years ago. Who knows what he would say now? Can you imagine how fast things are changing, within the span of time of 16 months of a pandemic? How much has changed? How incredibly much has changed? Is it a new world? It's a new world. And so we have there was a beautiful presentation by a dear friend of mine whose name is Yaakov Leban. Yaakov, I met, was a young Talmudic student, or a young rabbinic student I met in Israel on one of my trips over a decade ago, and a very clever, creative, interesting person. Fluent in Mandarin Chinese. You don't get too many rabbis fluent in Mandarin Chinese. And actually he has some, then he developed a marketing firm that was unfortunately brought to an early demise by the pandemic itself and the dearth of marketing of jobs that were out there in the world. A lot of those in the field suffered. but a very creative fellow. And he actually came here twice or three times to Denver to present to some of his unique perspective on modern lessons, in the Jewish world. And he had a very interesting Kabbalistic approach to the fact that the universe seems to be like speeding up right now. Like with the Industrial Revolution, things just, it's just the changes that are going on in the world, Copernican revolution type changes, major changes going on with greater and greater frequency. And he drew kind of a chart on the board of like how fast things are changing. And it's almost shocking how fast things are going. I mean, up until the time of the Industrial Revolution, he shared the life of a human being from the time of Abraham till the early part of the 19th century was pretty much identical. There weren't a lot of significant differences between, in those thousands of years. But in the last hundreds of years, 150, 200 years since the Industrial Revolution, incredible things changes have taken place. Tremendous changes have taken place. And how many things, how many times do I have to say to my kids, when I was a kid, we didn't have that, we didn't have this, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have Uber, we didn't have, we didn't have Zoom. There are a million things I can go through my life that my kids don't appreciate what life was like that we didn't have. And that's not so many years ago. And, they call the latest generation, I think the iGen, the baby boomers, the Generation Xers, then there was Y, then there was the millennials, now there's the iGen. What is it, iGen? iGen is a generation of people that didn't have iPhones in their hands. You know what I'm saying? They always, from birth, they didn't, these are our children, the next generation that were born into a world with an iPhone. They never knew a world prior to that. The other day, someone told me that I was a kid who was in a TV store, and he went up to the TV and he was touching the screens, and he said, "It's broken. Look at that. Doesn't do anything. He's broken." He didn't understand the concept. It was not a touch screen. There's no such thing. Well, what's not a touch screen? Like you can't touch it and doesn't do something. Couldn't get that. It must have been broken. The rapidity with which the world is changing is incredible. Imagine that the 2 years is a whole generation. It's a whole new world, a whole new universe. And I think that if he'd still be alive today, Rav Moshe would probably shorten that even further. So, we're delighted to get people back together in person. This is the Shmorek series that's beginning tonight as an in-person series, and we're serving dinner. And it's a welcome change. We're looking forward to it. We really are hoping to do that, but it's going to be a hybrid program for a while, and we're going to have to see. I don't know if there's ever going to be programs where a hybrid virtual option isn't necessary. Are we ever going to go exclusively back to the non-hybrid, non-virtual? I don't know. I'll tell you one thing that really does, keep us nailed down though as a people, the Jewish people, and that is Shabbos. Because as much as yes, we're responsive to technological innovation, but at the same time, that's not necessarily what Shabbos is about. Shabbos is really a time of putting aside our technical tools. In fact, our tools of all kinds. They don't have to be technical. They don't have to be advanced. They don't have to be new. We put all our tools aside. It's not a creative time. And then it's not about displaying our ingenious new mastery of the universe. It's quite the opposite. It's about sitting back and calmly resting from all of that greatness, from all that creative ingenuity of the week. On Shabbos we put that stuff down, we put it aside, and we have a special reality, and that special reality is an opportunity that is created by the absence of certain things. The word Shabbos means that we are putting aside, we are ceasing, as a cease and desist. We're kind of withdrawing from certain things that are weekly, weekday, vachadik, we would say in Yiddish, which means they're just weekday type activities. And when we rest from them and we put them aside, we create a space. A holy space. We're into safe spaces now. This is like a safe, holy space that we create with Shabbos. And the only way we do it is by kind of keeping things out. And those things that we need to keep out are not necessarily innovation or technology, but anything that really is about expressing our creative mastery over the universe. On Shabbos, we're supposed to rest from that, because the point is to check into and to connect to the fact that God is the creative master of the universe, not us. And when we take a break from all those things, we have this sanctity and the peace of mind and the and the break in the action that allows us to check in with that. So we will always have in-person events, because we're always going to want to be together for Shabbos, and there's going to be no alternative to that. And we're always going to want to have the ability to have a paper book. Paper books are never going to go away from the Jewish people, because we're always going to need it at least one day a week. If it's anything to do with you could get a Jewish prayer book app for your phone, but it really doesn't need Sabbath prayers on it. It just needs 6 days of prayers. It doesn't need the seventh. And so that is one beautiful way that keeps the Jewish people pinned down. As we said, the values of the Torah are eternal. Just the means of discussing them sometimes are new. Lastly, I just want to share one more thought from the parsha, which is very important, very beautiful. At the end of the parsha, there is the perhaps fairly well-known incident of Miriam, Moshe's sister Miriam. So the triumvirate of Jewish leadership in that generation was Moses and his brother Aaron and their sister Miriam. And the three of them were the triumvirate of Jewish leadership in their day. And the Parsha records an unfortunate incident where Aaron and Miriam were wondering aloud about a personal decision that Moses had made. And they did so in not in an ill-meaning way. They didn't mean to express anything disparaging about their beloved and esteemed brother Moshe, but it fell into the realm of Lashon Hara. And Miriam spoke about Moshe in a way that is described as deemed as Lashon Hara. And as we hopefully all know from Clean Speech, Colorado, if not elsewhere, we know that Lashon Hara is basically slandering, as a gossiping or slandering someone, and there without them being there. And in this case, God Almighty intervened, and Miriam was stricken with a tsaras, so like kind of a skin affliction that the Torah describes, and associates specifically with the mistake of speaking Lashon Hara. So this is something. It's a narrative that actually we have an explicit commandment to remember forever. You're supposed to remember this narrative in this week's parsha forever. Never forget it. To remember that Miriam, who loved her brother and meant the very best about him, that she didn't intend to speak anything negative. She just asked a particular question in a way that was deemed across the line. And she was immediately, that was a mistake in the category of Lashon Hara, and she was immediately stricken with this punishment of tsaras. The entirety of the Jewish people was about to move, as we talked about earlier in the show, about to journey, about to disembark and to head off to their next stop on their desert journey. And they had to wait because she was sent outside the camp, which is what happens to someone who's spoken Lashon Hara in that way and gets tsaras. And and they have to be outside the camp for a week, and everyone waited for her. So it's something that we're supposed to remember as a kind of a way to remind ourselves and to be cognizant, to be so careful of what we say, to never even be even close to saying something, even about something we do like, even to verbalize something that could potentially be negative. Be so careful. I actually read, and I'll close with this thought. I actually read the most amazing thing that the Vilna Gaon said. We spoke about him, one of our great sages of the 18th century. He said, if going to synagogue on Shabbos would be a place where you'd speak Lashon Hara, better stay home. Better not to pray than to be involved in Lashon Hara. And that's an incredible statement to make. We know how important it is for us communal life and prayer. But he said all of that would be better to be avoided rather than to participate in Lashon Hara. So a little reminder, this is a lesson we're supposed to never forget from the Parsha Ba'alosecha. Shem should look after us all and visit us only with good news to share. Have a healthy day and a holy day, and we will see you, God willing, tomorrow on Live at 5.